Hello and welcome to Indian Standard Time. I'm Siddharth Varadarajan. On June 1st in London, Mr. Ahmed Naseem, the former president of the Maldives, joined other leaders of the opposition to set up the Maldives United Opposition, London-based but with the goal of pushing for political transformation, democratization in the Maldives. They also set up a shadow government, something that's quite unusual in South Asia. We haven't seen many of those. And named or appointed the former Foreign Minister of the Maldives, Mr. Ahmed Naseem, as Shadow Foreign Minister. We are very fortunate today on IST to have with us Mr. Naseem to discuss the formation of the United Opposition, the shadow government, and of course the prospects for accomplishing your goals of restoring what you believe should be true democracy in the Maldives. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Cynics may say that the Maldives United Opposition brings together forces, personalities, elements who are very diverse, people who haven't seen eye to eye with each other in the past, leaving aside the fact that they're sitting in London. But when you have around the same table somebody like former Vice President Jamil and, of course, Mr. Nasheed, what are the prospects of all of these different leaders who have been at opposite sides of the fence in the past, joining hands and struggling constructively to bring about change in the Maldives back home?
I think it's a very relevant and an important question. The reason why we are together is because we have a problem that has to be addressed by all people of Maldives. And I think 50% of what we want to achieve have already been achieved. That is because we have actually come together.
So you've sunk your differences?
We have kept our differences. We have our differences, okay, of course, but then I think the issue that what's going on in Maldives today is much more important than our differences. And the similarities between us is a lot bigger than the differences that we have. And we come from different political backgrounds and different ideas and different views, but we have one common view. That is, today the government of Maldives is running the country in such a way that it would be a disaster if this continues as it goes. So we have come to the conclusion that it is time that we stand up together and fight together in order to restore democracy and bring a rule of law and justice and human rights to the forefront. And that would be our main target. And also, under these circumstances, it is impossible, under the present conditions, it's impossible to have a free and fair election in 2018. And I will elaborate on that later on. So this is a great achievement. And we are very positive in this. And we know that there will be more joining us. There will be more people coming to join the opposition because we believe very strongly that more than 70% of the people of Maldives want this government changed.
How much time went into the discussions to form the Maldives United Opposition? How quickly was this project conceived and executed?
It took us about 3-4 months of negotiation between us and then coming together and having discussions. And we did it unofficially earlier. And then later on we formalized it. And it was good that we did it in London because President Nasheed was there at that time in London, and that's the reason. We have offices in Maldives, we have offices in London, and we have office in Sri Lanka.
Right. Now, London has always played home to leaders and governments in exile, opposition personalities, not just from South Asia. Benazir Bhutto, for example, spent long years in London, but people from all over the world, really. But the question that needs to be asked, particularly in your context, is how effective the United Opposition can be with its main leadership in London. How successful will you be in mobilizing public opinion on the streets in Malé? Because ultimately that's what's going to be decisive in bringing about political change.
We have a large number of our leaders in Maldives present already. And Adalat Party is our coalition partner. And also there are many individuals who held different high-level posts in this government who have resigned. They are all there, and they have their people followers as well. So we have a very strong standing in Maldives throughout the atolls and islands, and especially in Malé, we have very strong appeal, and also in Addu atoll.
Right. And is it fair to ask whether the exile of Mr. Nasheed to London, although one cannot sit in judgment about the conditions of incarceration and everything that he experienced or went through. So one can't fault him for wanting to go into exile. But is it possible that his decision to go into exile in some ways robs not just the MDP but the United Opposition of what was a global focal point? In a way, the international community's attention was focused on his incarceration, the conditions of his incarceration, the injustice of it all. Now that he's left the country, has this, in a way, allowed the Yameen government to duck this issue, and in a way, the international community may lose focus and stop fixing its attention on what's happening in the Maldives?
On the contrary, actually, President Nasheed and former Vice President Jamil are in London at the moment. But it does not necessarily mean that they'll be permanently staying in London. They could also travel abroad. And I believe very strongly that the President Nasheed's presence and Jamil's presence in London is an asset to this movement, because there's a lot more focus internationally on President Nasheed at the moment, and also on Vice President Jamil. So I believe that this is a good thing. I believe that it's a good thing, and both President Nasheed and Vice President Jamil are very much alive in Maldives. And this is the first time in the history of Maldives when a president or a prime minister or a sultan is overthrown, the people rally behind that particular person. This is the first time in the history of Maldives. So this is a new phenomenon, which goes to show how popular President Nasheed was with the people and is with the people. So it continues today. In spite of the fact that all political rallies and gatherings are not allowed in Male, still it happens. So we are going to have a very big rally in Male in July, just before our Independence Day on the 26th. And we will be starting our activism from the 14th of July.
The CMAG, the Commonwealth Monitoring Group, is supposed to conduct its review of the extent to which the Yameen government has made progress on the 6 points. There's a special envoy or special representative that the Commonwealth has appointed. We know, based on the visit that President Yameen made to Delhi earlier this year, that if there's one thing that his government is uncomfortable with, it's the possibility that the Commonwealth will make an adverse finding or take some kind of action against his government. In that context, the appointment of a special envoy, do you think that this is actually will allow the Yameen government to buy time to say that we need to engage in a dialogue, and that the process of the Commonwealth actually acting against the government may get postponed as a result?
I think the CMAG, Commonwealth Ministerial Action Group, is well aware of the tricks of President Yameen. And he tries to buy time by doing this kind of thing. But I personally, and I think the United Opposition is quite happy with the gentleman who has been appointed as a judge, because he has experience from Kenyan judiciary reforms.
Right.
So that would help a great deal if it goes well. We welcome that. And we will certainly work very closely with him and see that something can be, because judiciary is the main focus in Maldives. You know that the elections were rigged. Elections were the Supreme Court intervened in the elections and nullified the times that we won, and twice they nullified the elections. And this is how Yameen won this election, because they identified who and who was not voting. And then there's a strong rumor that fake ID cards were printed, and then he got the police and the military people to, and also his close friends, to vote double and 3 times. So these are accusations. But coming out from different sources gives a lot of credibility to this kind of accusations. Right. So this is how this election in 2013 happened. And in fact, President Yameen went on public TV and said that he won the elections with the help of the Supreme Court, which is not a lie.
What explains this proximity of the Maldivian judiciary to political parties in this way? I mean, in South Asia, we are familiar with the odd judgment or the odd judge making a statement or giving a ruling that some party or the other may not like. But I don't think the accusation has ever been made, certainly not in this country, that the judiciary backs party A or party B or is opposed to party C or party D. How does this happen in the Maldives that you can have such a tight, or allegations of such a tight nexus between the government, between a ruling party and the judiciary?
You go back to the history of Maldives. During the 30-year dictatorship of Maumoon Abdul Gayoom and even the previous dictatorship of President Nasheed and the dictatorships earlier, the supreme judge was the president or the prime minister. So this is how it happened in Maldives. I mean the king. So this is how it happened. And so I think that culture still exists to a great extent, and it is difficult to get rid of the dictatorship. You can get rid of a dictator, but it's difficult to get rid of a dictatorship because the roots of this dictatorship is penetrating the lives of so many people, and beneficiaries of the previous regime will always be there. But Yamin made some very crucial decisions. Because he has the absolute majority in the parliament, the original number of Supreme Court judges was 7. So he got rid of 2 more judges from there. The Chief Justice, as well as another judge who was trained in United Kingdom. And so after getting rid of them, he was sure of his majority in the Supreme Court. So that is how this was articulated, and it was cleverly done.
Given that the UN Special Envoy, Mr. Tamrat Samuel, went through the process of discussing all of these issues with the Yamin government, didn't really produce any outcome. The arguments haven't shifted from then. What the government says is the same thing. What the opposition says is the same thing. What is the reason for anybody in the world to be optimistic that a Commonwealth Special Envoy could pull a rabbit out of the hat?
Because we will do our best to support his cause, and we will be fighting for this. And that is the only reason, a joint opposition. So I think there's a plus there. And this joint opposition is very, very credible in Maldives, and there's a lot of support in it, and people are having hope, and they think there is a future for us in Maldives. And we will not let them down.
One of the demands that the opposition has raised is for so-called targeted economic sanctions against leading personalities in the government. Is that a realistic demand? Do you, in your interaction as Shadow Foreign Minister, or even earlier as a prominent opposition leader, did you have any reason to be optimistic about London, Paris, or Washington being receptive to this idea of using this kind of a measure to put pressure on the Yamin government, targeted economic sanctions?
Sanctions are always difficult thing to do, to come by.
And we're talking about a small country, a poor country. This won't go down very well in the public.
Maldives is not a poor country.
No, I mean by Western standards, obviously.
By Western standards, yes. But by South Asian standards, I think Maldives is a rich country, and there's a lot of revenue. Only thing, it is not used in the right way, and there's rampant corruption in the country, and this corruption leads to, there are many wealthy countries in the world, but the benefits of this wealth does not reach the poor or the average person. So it's the same thing in Maldives, what is happening now. So the targeted sanctions, we are not talking about tourism boycott. We are not talking about tourists not coming to Maldives. But what we are talking about is the people who are supportive of and upholding this totalitarian regime. They should be targeted because they are funding the dictatorship. So we have identified...
So you want a travel ban, you want a bank account freeze, this sort of thing?
Yeah, bank account freezes and travel bans. Now, if that happens, I think it would be a very quick solution. The threat of sanctions in 2004 on the resolution of the European Union actually gave us the democratic constitution.
Right. So you think this could be a lever, but what about the response that you've got from Whitehall, from Washington?
As I said earlier, this type of thing takes time.
Okay.
We have had several meetings with them, and I strongly believe that it is doable.
Okay.
It is doable. But less and less people are being supportive of this regime now.
Right. Absolutely.
It might not even be necessary.
Yeah.
But we will pursue these angles anyway.
Now, in a hypothetical situation where President Yameen accepts one of the principal demands that the opposition has made of releasing all leaders, freeing them from all these legal cases and so on, what would your next step be? To demand the formation of a transitional government? How do you envisage the political process going on from there if this principal demand of yours were to be conceded? How would things move?
What we are trying to do is to isolate President Yameen. We will be targeting the independent institutions. We'll be targeting the judiciary. We'll be targeting every possible independent organization. And what we will do is to isolate President Yameen. And that would be clipping a lot of feathers from his wings. So this way, I think he will feel quite isolated, that he does not, even now he's beginning to feel the isolation. Now, if you go through the newly elected ministers, you will find that they have no political background. They have had nothing to do in the political arena. There was no political platform, but they are there as ministers now. Many of them we don't even know. And so the caliber of the cabinet today is questionable by the average Maldivian. From what is the merit in appointing this person to this person or that person to the other post. And so we believe that there are people who have been approached to become foreign minister, but many people have rejected it, and they don't accept this post because they know that they don't have to get on a ship that is sinking.
Would free and fair elections be possible in 2018 without major reforms of the judiciary, of the police, all the levers that Yameen has been able to use in order to ensure that he always emerges on top? How would the sequencing happen? It
will be impossible to have a free and fair election, and we will certainly not participate in an election under these circumstances. Under this condition, it is not worth doing that.
So what would the principal steps be towards ensuring that the next election is free and fair?
We have to have a transitional arrangement.
Okay.
With or without Yameen.
Right.
But many of our people believe that it is impossible for Yameen to give us a free and fair election through reforms of the government and giving back the rights that are written in the constitution.
Right.
Because if these rights are given back to the people of Maldives and to the institutions, and if the institutions become independent, the first person to be prosecuted will be President Yameen. Yes. So it is not possible for him to do that.
Which is what I was trying to get at was that a transitional government, would that be a sufficient condition? It's necessary, yes. But would it be sufficient, or would you need some insulation, some protection against the judiciary, functioning in a way that acts against democracy?
I strongly believe that there will be a lot of support from the democratic countries for a reform process like this, because nobody wants authoritarian rule in the middle of the Indian Ocean.
Right.
Because that is detrimental to the security and the well-being of the Indian Ocean. And the geopolitical situation that has existed for years and years in the Indian Ocean is collapsing.
Right.
So it is always safer for our region to have a democratic government elected by the people, supported by the people, leading the country, and have a credible, and Maldives comes back as a very credible state, which it was before.
If I build on your answer just now and focus on the international dimension or the security or the regional dimension a little bit, there have been concerns about the emergence of some of the islands of the Maldives as a den for radical elements. The opposition has spoken about this as a possibility. Are these exaggerated fears, or do you look at the involvement of some Maldivian radicals in ISIS and in Iraq and Syria as signs that this process of radicalization is already underway?
We can't actually, we can't, I don't know, it's very, very important that this radical issue is addressed in Maldives. But unfortunately, President Yameen is unable to do that because his closest ally, Sun Siam, is actually financing the Salafist movement in Maldives. And this is common knowledge, everybody knows it. And then, therefore, actually Sansiam is the only collaborator that he has. So he needs these people. So it's very difficult for him to turn his back on them and do that, because it will be very difficult for him to do that. So he has to support this. And he's just turning a blind eye to all the recruiting that's going on. Otherwise, it could have been stopped. It's a small country.
Right.
It's a very small country, and these things can be controlled. Right. And when they return to Maldives after fighting in Syria or wherever, and they begin to train other people in their own islands, you know. And we have got some photographs of these training camps. Right. So these are very, very dangerous. Maldives is a very porous boundary. It has really no boundaries. Exactly. So the drugs are penetrating into Maldives. Drugs are buried in the sea, and divers go and pick them up. And it has become a transition point for drug dealing. And these are all things that we, as the average Maldivian, don't like. Right. We don't want to be in the middle of a situation where we are targeted as, as this kind of money laundering, corruption, and drug peddling state. Right. Right. I mean, where is the state? So I believe that with the support that we have in Maldives, and with the hope and aspirations that people have for this joint coalition, yes, we will be certainly successful, inshallah.
The close friends of the President Yameen internationally include, of course, China and Saudi Arabia. He's so close to the Saudi Arabians, in fact, that Maldives is one of the few countries to break off relations with Iran. Is that, given the kind of support that he gets from Riyadh, and also in a way encouragement from China, do you think that could provide the Yameen government cover from whatever international opposition you are trying to build up in the West?
I don't think so. I don't think so. Because Saudi Arabia also will have to export their products, oil or whatever, to the Western countries. And China's main economy is based on exports to the West. Yeah. And I think they will go so far, not more. Okay.
We don't have much time, maybe just a couple of minutes. And I do want to ask you for your opinion on what India should be doing. Maldives is the only South Asian country where our Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, hasn't visited yet. In fact, the visit got cancelled. And then we had the visit, as I mentioned earlier, of Mr. Yameen to Delhi, largely driven by his fears about the Commonwealth. What do you think, what would your advice be to the government of India on how they can be of assistance? Obviously, the government can't take sides in a political fight, but what are the broad contours of Indian policy towards the Maldives that you would encourage or you would ask for?
I'm very heartened by Indian policy on Maldives. I think it's very constructive and it's very good. Different countries have their different ways of dealing with issues. And the way that India is dealing with this issue is excellent. And I praise Prime Minister Modi, and I assure Prime Minister Modi that under a coalition government in Maldives, India will be the first country that we look up to. And we will always appreciate what India has done for us, what India is continuing to do for us. And it is very important that this government has a dialogue with the present government, whatever the government is. And that is the only way we can come out of this dire situation. Right. And I would hate to see fatigue setting into this political dialogue with India, and not take that this is the way it is going to be. Right. No, it's not the way it's going to be. So we will pursue our objectives. We will pursue our desire for democracy, human rights, and freedom. And I am sure, as a nation, as the biggest democratic country in the world, India will have no other intentions than to democratize Maldives.
On that note, Mr. Ahmed Naseem, Shadow Foreign Minister of the Maldives, thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure, and thank you very much for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you. Well, this wraps up our episode of IST. Do join us again next week with another guest. Thank you for watching.